The ship was quiet. Not the quiet of sleep, but the heavy, humming quiet of a vessel deep in the empty places between stars. The lights on the bridge of the UNSS Endurance were soft. They lit up the tired but focused faces of the crew. On the main screen, a sea of black was dotted with pinpricks of distant, uncaring suns. Captain John Park leaned back in his chair, reading a report on a tablet. His eyes felt dry. The survey mission was long, peaceful, and very boring. Their job was to map dust clouds and mineral deposits in a spiral arm nobody else seemed to care about. The Galactic Council called it a passive observation sector. Jun called it the back end of nowhere dot at the communication station. Yuna Kim listened to the static of the universe. It was a white noise she knew like her own breath. Beeps and pings from cosmic objects, all logged and filed away. Her fingers danced over the controls, filtering out the known, listening for the new. There was rarely anything new. "Another hour to the next scan point, Captain," said Min Choi from the engineering console. He was drinking something thick and brown from a bulb. "All systems are green." "Boring green." Jun offered a small smile. "Boring is good, Min. Boring means we're not on fire." Suddenly, Yuna sat up straight. Her head tilted. "Captain," she said, her voice cutting the quiet, "I'm picking up something. It's faint. Very faint. But it's repeating. Natural source?" Jun asked, putting his tablet down. "Unlikely. The pattern is too regular. It's on a council distress frequency. But it's old. Weak, like a battery almost dead." A new kind of quiet fell on the bridge. A distress call out here was impossible. This system was in the database. It was listed as uninhabited. Its star was old. Its planets were rocks. All useful resources stripped clean millennia ago by some ancient mining operation. "Put it on speaker," Jun ordered. The sound that filled the bridge was not a voice. It was a low, melodic series of chimes and whistles, beautiful and sad. It repeated a short sequence, and paused, then repeated again. It had been doing this, they realized, for a very long time. "That's no natural phenomenon," said Jia Li, the ship's xenobiologist, who had come onto the bridge silently. Her face was pale in the screen's light. "That's structured communication. It's music. Where's it coming from?" Jun asked. "The third planet," Min said, his eyes on his scanner. "The one listed as atmosphere, non-viable. Biosphere, terminally degraded. Against every protocol, against the statute of non-interference that humanity had signed to join the galactic community, June made a decision. Change course. Take us in. Full passive scans. I want to know what's down there." As the Endurance moved closer, the picture that formed was one of quiet death. The planet was a pale blue marble, wreathed in thin, sickly clouds. Scans showed a crumbling continent, vast acidic oceans. And there, on the largest landmass, one tiny flickering spark of energy. "One settlement," Min whispered. "One city. It's under some kind of dome. The energy signature is. It's failing. It might have 10 years left. Maybe less." The beautiful, sad signal was coming from that dome. "Can we see them?" Yuna asked. Her voice soft. Jia enhanced the visual. The dome was crystal, cracked in places. Inside, they could see the vague shapes of structures, thin and graceful. And moving among them, small, slender figures. They moved slowly, with a terrible grace. "We have to answer," Yuna said. "We have to tell them they're not alone." "First, we need to know why they're alone," June said, a knot of dread in his stomach. "Access the Galactic Council Public Archive. Search for this planet, this species." The database entry loaded on the screen. The species were called the Illusions. Amphibious humanoids, peaceful, technologically advanced in biological arts, but not in spatial engineering. Their star had suffered a catastrophic solar event thousands of years ago, scorching their world, breaking its atmosphere. They had sent out pleas for help. The archive recorded it all. Then came the judgment. The voting records of the great galactic powers were cold and clear. The Astron Collective, logical and hyper-advanced, had voted non-intervention. Species has passed its evolutionary peak. Intervention is inefficient. Designated for observation of natural conclusion. The Krovan hegemony, all commerce and calculation, had voted no viable trade or resource value. Cost of uplift exceeds any potential gain. Non-intervention. One by one, every member of the council had agreed. The illusion's fate was sealed not by a weapon, but by a vote. They were written off. A line item in a cosmic ledger closed as a loss. Their world was marked uninhabited because its inhabitants were not considered worth saving. A hot, silent rage filled the bridge. It was in Min's white-knuckled grip on his console, in the tear that traced a path down Yuna's cheek as the sad music played on, in the way GA's scientific detachment shattered into raw human fury. They were just left. Min spat out the words. They just decided to let them die? According to the statute, we are obligated to do the same, Jun said, but his voice sounded hollow even to himself. We are to observe and report, not interfere. Report what? Yuna snapped, then immediately looked down. Sorry, Captain. But report what? The date of the last breath? Gia stepped forward, her mind clicking into a different mode. Captain, their atmospheric decay. It's from solar radiation stripping the upper layers. Our terraforming tech, the atmospheric processors on the Carpenter-class ships. We could fix that. It would take time, but we could do it. And their power grid, Min added, his engineer's mind racing. That dome is running on fission. We have a fusion reactor. A single auxiliary generator from the Endurance could power their entire city for 100 years. It's a spare part for us. For them, it's life. Jun looked at the screen, at the dying world, at the flickering dome. He listened to the music of a people singing into a void that had answered with silence. He thought of the rules, of the fragile respect humanity had earned in a vast, uncaring galaxy. He thought of sanctions, of being shut out, of becoming pariahs. Then he looked at his crew, at Yuna's compassionate anger, at Min's furious ingenuity, at GA's determined hope. He saw humanity reflected in them, not the new, careful members of the Galactic Club, but the stubborn, irrational, beautiful species that always tried to save the canary in the coal mine. The silence on the bridge was absolute, waiting for his word. He took a deep breath. The rules were clear, but some things were clearer. Yuna, he said, his voice low but firm, cutting through the heavy air. Open a channel to the illusion remnant. Use the universal translator base. Let them know. Let them know someone has heard their song. A flicker of relief, of fierce pride, crossed her face. Yes, Captain. Min, Gia, start running the numbers. I want a full proposal. What do we need? How long will it take? What can the Endurance do right now? They sprang into action, a new energy powering their movements. Jun turned back to the main screen, to the pale planet. His next order was the one that would change everything. And Yuna, he said, prepare a tight beam data burst for Sol, Priority 1. Attach all sensor logs, the Council records, and my personal log. Mark it for the United Earth Government and the Stellar Fleet Command. He paused, the weight of the moment settling on him. He was not just a captain, no. He was a man drawing a line. Title it Operation Mercy, and in the header, he looked once more at the fragile dome, at the people waiting to die, forgotten by the galaxy. In the header, write, requesting permission to disobey. The Endurance broke through the thin, wispy clouds of the illusion world. Up close, the planet was a painting of sorrow. The oceans were a sickly green, the land gray and cracked. The only color was the faint, shimmering bubble of the dome. A last soap clinging to a barren rock. Jun stood at the helm, his hands steady on the controls. The ship's landing gear unfolded with a deep metallic groan as it settled on a rocky plain just outside the dome. The dust, dry and lifeless, settled slowly around them. Through the main viewport, they could see the dome's surface. It was not smooth, but faceted like a cracked gem. Deep fissures ran through it, patched in places with material that glowed weakly. Atmospheric composition is stable but thin. High radiation count, Min reported from his station. Suit integrity is mandatory. No exceptions. The crew assembled in the cargo bay. They wore their environment suits, bulky and white. Jun, Min, Yuna, and Jia were going first. They carried basic aid kits, a portable generator, and a large translator unit. The inner door sealed with a hiss. The outer ramp lowered. The air outside was still and silent. The sky was a pale, washed-out blue. The light from the distant sun was weak, giving no warmth. Their boots crunched on the dead ground as they walked toward the dome. There was an archway, a grand but crumbling entrance. As they approached, a section of the dome's energy field rippled and vanished, creating a doorway. Figures waited inside. They were tall and slender, their skin a soft, pearlescent gray. Large, dark eyes, lidless and deep, watched them without blinking. They had delicate, webbed hands and long necks. They wore simple, flowing garments. They did not look afraid. They looked resigned, as if the humans were not a surprise, but a final note in a long, sad song. The tallest among them stepped forward. Jun held up the translator device. It emitted a series of the same melodic chimes they had heard from space. The illusion's head tilted. It responded, its voice a beautiful, watery sound even through the translator. I am Talon, the words formed in English from the small speaker. You are the source of the new signal. You answered. There was no joy, only a profound confusion. Why? Jun cleared his throat, his voice sounding too loud in his helmet. We heard your call. We came to help. The word help seemed to have no direct translation. The translator stuttered, then produced an illusion phrase that meant to give effort where no gain exists. Talon was silent for a long moment. The other illusions watched, still as statues. Our call was old. The galaxy heard. The galaxy judged. We were found insufficient. Our story was concluded. You are from the new species, the humans. Your name is in the old bulletins. You agreed to the law of non-interference. You risk much for a conclusion. We don't see a conclusion. Yuna's voice came over the coms, gentle but firm. We see people. Jia stepped forward, holding a scanner. Your atmosphere is failing because the planetary magnetic field is weak. Solar radiation is stripping it away. Your dome is failing because your power sources are decaying. We have technology that can address both. It is not a miracle. It is engineering. Tylen's large eyes moved from one human to another. For the first time, a flicker of something like pain crossed its serene face. You offer tomorrow. We have made peace with today. To hope again? It is a difficult gift. Back on the Endurance, work began with a furious, focused energy. Min became a man possessed. He led teams who dragged heavy cables from the ship's secondary fusion reactor across the dead rock to the dome's ancient power grid. The illusion engineers, their movements slow and deliberate, watched as the humans worked with a frantic, messy speed. Min's voice was a constant stream over the radio. "No, not that conduit. It's crystalline. It'll shatter. We need to bypass the whole primary intake. Hannah, get me the plasma torch." Sparks flew. Metal was welded. Human tools whirred and snapped. To the illusions, it looked like chaos. But slowly, a new hum joined the dying whine of their old systems. Lights inside the dome, which had been dim for generations, grew brighter. The faint, worrying shudder of the dome structure began to steady. Meanwhile, Gia and her team set up the atmospheric processors. These were large, cylindrical machines, their surfaces covered in vents and filters. They were designed to take a bad mix of gases and, over time, turn it into breathable air. They planted them in strategic locations around the dome's exterior, where they began to pull in the thin, toxic atmosphere and start their slow, chemical work. "It will take years," Gia explained to a group of illusion elders in a quiet dome chamber. "But the first change you will notice is a reduction in the radiation sickness. Then the pressure headaches will ease. Then one day, your children will be able to look at a patch of real sky without fear." Yuna's work was different. She sat with the young. She showed them pictures of Earth, blue oceans, green forests, fields of flowers. They touched the images on her tablet with delicate, webbed fingers, their dark eyes wide. She taught them simple songs. Not human songs, but she used her linguist skills to make melodies that fit their own tonal language. The sound of illusion children singing, a sound of play instead of lament, began to drift through the crystalline corridors. It was the most powerful technology of all. On the bridge of the Endurance, now acting as a command center, June received the message from Earth. It was a direct feed from the Galactic Council chambers. He watched Ambassador Hana Song, standing small before the towering, holographic forms of the Astron and Krovan representatives. The Astron's voice was a smooth, logical chime. "Humanity, you are in violation of Statute 7. You expend significant resources to postpone an inevitable natural endpoint. This is emotional, inefficient, and wasteful. Cease your activities immediately. Withdraw your vessel." Hanasong did not bow. "We are providing humanitarian aid to a sentient species in distress. This is a core principle of our civilization." The Krovan representative, its form shifting like liquid metal, hissed. "You introduce unstable variables. You give false hope. You disrupt the settled order. Withdraw, or your species' trade access to the galactic stream will be terminated. Your ships will be confined to your home sector." The threat hung in the air. Jun felt the eyes of his bridge crew on him. The cost was being laid bare. Isolation, poverty. A cage drawn around humanity's stars dot the feed showed Hannah listening, her face calm. Then she spoke, and her words were not for the council alone. They were for every human listening, and for Jun, standing on a dead world. "Humanity does not observe extinction," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "We defy it. We stand with them." The feed cut. The official orders from United Earth Command flashed onto Chun's screen. They were only 3 words. Hold the line. A feeling, fierce and bright, surged through Jun. They were not recalled. They were not disavowed. Earth, with all the risks, was standing with them. He was about to give the order to double their efforts when Min's voice, sharp with alarm, crackled over the internal coms from the planet's surface. "Jun, we've got a problem. Big energy spike from the outer system. 3 signatures. They just warped it right at the system's edge." Jun rushed to the sensor station. On the screen, 3 sleek, dagger-shaped ships had appeared. Their profiles were in the database. Krovan blockade runners. Fast, heavily armed, and merciless. A new transmission screamed into the Endurance, not on a diplomatic channel, but on a brutal, open frequency. The voice was a guttural snarl through the translator. Human vessel Endurance. This is the Krovan hegemony. You are in violation of Council decree. Power down your reactor and your weapons. Prepare to be boarded. Your technology will be confiscated. Your crew will be detained. Any resistance will be met with lethal force. You have 10 of your minutes to comply. Jun looked down at the viewport, at the fragile dome, at the lights that had just grown a little brighter. He thought of Hana's words, echoing in the silent council chamber. He looked at his crew, waiting. He switched to the ship-wide channel. His voice was calm. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. Min, get everyone from the surface back on board. Now, we are not leaving. We are not powering down. He took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on the 3 red dots moving toward them. We are going to hold the line. The bridge of the Endurance was a storm of quiet motion. Sirens whooped once, then were silenced, replaced by the tense chatter of status reports. Lights on consoles switched from soft blue to urgent red. Jun stood at the center, his hands gripping the back of his chair. On the main screen, the 3 Krovan ships were no longer distant dots. They were growing larger, their predatory shapes sharp against the stars. Surface team is back on board. Captain. Min's voice came through, tight with stress. Seal the bay doors. The reactor is tied into the dome grid. If we power down, their lights go out. We're not powering down, Jun said. Tactical. What are they showing? Yuna, now at the weapons and sensor station, shook her head. Full combat readiness. Plasma cannons charged. Shields at maximum. They're faster, and they hit harder. Our shields are for micrometeorites, not military-grade plasma. Jun knew this. The Endurance was a survey ship. It had a couple of point defense lasers to clear debris. It was not a warship. It was a can opener facing 3 knives. The Krovan commander's voice snarled again. Your time is up, human. Final warning. Jun opened the channel. His voice was calm, flat. Krovan vessel, this is Captain Jun Park of the UNSS Endurance. We are engaged in a humanitarian mission under the authority of United Earth. We will not stand down. We will not abandon this world. Do not force a conflict. The response was a laugh, a harsh, static-filled sound. Humanitarian? You are stealing resources and interfering with the Galactic Council mandate. You are thieves and fools. Be erased. The lead Krovan ship fired. A bolt of green plasma, blindingly bright, lanced across the void. It struck the Endurance as forward shields. The ship shuddered violently. Alarm screamed. The shield indicator on Yuna's console dropped by 30%. Direct hit on the forward shield. It won't take another like that. She yelled. Evasive pattern beta. Jun ordered. The Endurance was slow, but its thrusters fired, pushing it into a lumbering roll. Another plasma bolt seared past, missing by kilometers. The Krovan ships were faster, dancing around them. Return fire? Yuna asked, her fingers hovering over the laser controls. Negative. Use point defense to intercept any shots you can. Our job is to buy time, not to win, Jun said. He knew the math. They just had to last dot another bolt hit, this time on the port side. The ship groaned like a wounded animal. Sparks erupted from a console on the bridge. A crewman was thrown from his seat. The lights flickered, port shield failing. Hull breach on deck 4, sealed. Min shouted over the comms from engineering. Jun, they're picking us apart. The Crovens were circling now, like wolves. They took their time. This was a punishment, a lesson for the upstart humans. The lead ship came in for another run, its cannons glowing a deadly green. Then, space rippled. Behind the Endurance, between the human ship and the pale blue planet, the void itself seemed to tear open. Bright, twisting lines of energy swirled and collapsed, and 5 new ships roared into existence. They were human. The lead ship was a blocky, powerful-looking destroyer, its hull painted with the letters Unzyme-Arthur. 2 smaller, agile frigates flanked it, and behind them, 2 bulky, unarmed civilian vessels, engineering ships, their shapes utilitarian and strong. A new voice filled the bridge, deep and steady. Croven vessels. This is Commodore Tae Kim of the United Nations Stellar Fleet. You are firing on a protected humanitarian asset. Break off your attack immediately, or be engaged. The Croven ships hesitated. Their formation tightened. The lead ship responded. More humans. More fools. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Leave now, or be destroyed with your little survey ship. Commodore Tae's response was instant. All human vessels. Defensive formation Delta. Protect the Endurance. Protect the planet. Frigates, screen the engineers. MacArthur, forward. The human ships moved. It was not a graceful dance like the Crovens. It was a stubborn, solid shift. The MacArthur moved forward, placing its heavier bulk directly in the line of fire. The 2 frigates, quick and nimble, positioned themselves between the Croven ships and the vulnerable engineering vessels. The Endurance, wounded, drifted back toward the planet, shielded by the new arrivals. The Croven commander, enraged, focused all fire on the MacArthur. Green plasma hammered the destroyer's shields. They flared brilliant white, but held. The MacArthur returned fire with solid, thumping kinetic rounds. Heavy metal slugs fired at a fraction of light speed. They didn't have the flash of plasma, but they hit the lead Croven ship with a series of shuddering impacts that cracked its sleek hull and sent debris spinning into space. One of the Croven ships broke off and tried to flank them, aiming for the engineering ships. The 2 human frigates dove to intercept. They were smaller and their weapons were light, but they flew with desperate, unpredictable courage. They weaved in front of the Croven, taking hits meant for the unarmed ships. 1 frigate took a direct hit to its engine. It spun out, trailing plasma and smoke, but its sacrifice meant the Croven's firing line was broken. On the bridge of the Endurance, John watched, his heart in his throat. He saw the MacArthur take another brutal hit, a whole section of its outer hull glowing red-hot. He saw the 2nd frigate, barely holding together, still firing. He saw the Croven ships, damaged and surprised. They were not used to an enemy that fought like this. The humans weren't trying to destroy them. They were trying to endure, to be a wall. Their formation is breaking. Una shouted, her voice raw with hope. The lead ship is falling back. It was true. The damaged Croven leader was turning away. The other 2 ships, seeing their commander retreat and facing a destroyer that refused to die, lost their will. With final parting shots that the MacArthur absorbed on its scarred shields, the Croven ships turned and sped away, warping out of the system in flashes of twisted light. Silence fell on the bridge, broken only by the crackle of damaged systems and the heavy breathing of the crew. On the screen, the MacArthur was a battered hero. 1 frigate was dead in space, the other limping. But they were there. Commodore Tae's face appeared on Chun's screen. He had a cut on his forehead, but his eyes were sharp. Captain Park, you planted a flag on quite the hill. Commodore, John said, his voice thick. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Tae said. The Council's real hammer hasn't fallen. They sent merchants to spank us. The soldiers are still watching. He turned his head, listening to someone off-screen. His expression grew grim. Speaking of which, long-range sensors are picking up a new warp signature. One signature. Very, very big. The screen changed to show the sensor display. At the very edge of the system, a single massive ship was emerging. Then another identical one appeared beside it. Then another. They kept coming. Not the sleek daggers of the Krovan, but vast, geometric shapes, smooth and cold. Astron observation vessels. They did not move closer. They did not hail. One by one, they took up positions in a wide, perfect circle around the entire star system. 100 silent, unmoving sentinels. They're not attacking, Una whispered, the horror dawning. No, Jun said, his earlier hope freezing into ice. They don't need to. They're building a prison. Commodore Tay's voice was hard. They're enforcing the quarantine. They're drawing a line around this system and daring us to cross it. If we try to leave, they'll stop us. If anyone tries to come in, they'll stop them. They're going to seal us in here with the people we came to save. They're going to wait us out until we run out of food or power or will. Jun looked from the silent Astron fleet on the screen down to the viewport, where the pale dome of the Illusion City glimmered weakly. They had won a battle against merchants. But now they faced the patient, uncaring judges of the galaxy. The line had been drawn, and humanity was trapped on the wrong side of it. Months passed. The pale sun of the Illusion system rose and fell over Hope's Harbor, a name that now felt like a challenge thrown at the silent stars. The Astron fleet never moved. They hung in their perfect circle, a cold necklace around the system's throat. They sent no messages. They made no demands. Their presence was the message. You are finished. Inside the prison they had made, life stubbornly blossomed. The human fleet, now a permanent fixture in orbit, became a hive of activity. The USS MacArthur, scarred and proud, stood guard. The two civilian engineering ships, the Carpenter and the Garden, became the heart of everything. They landed on the surface, their massive bays opening to spill out factories and workshops. Min Choi was in his element. His uniform was stained with grease, his eyes tired but bright. He worked side by side with the Illusion engineers, whose delicate, careful ways had slowly merged with human improvisation. Together, they built not just stabilizers, but foundations. The problem isn't the power, Min explained to a group of Illusion elders and human technicians in a new shared habitation dome. It was made of a composite material Illusion crystalline growth, guided by human steel frames. The problem is distribution. Your old grid was like a single thin thread. We're making a net. Across the city, new power relays hummed. Streets that had been dark for centuries were lit by soft, hybrid lamps Illusion bioluminescence, powered by human fusion. The great dome itself was now reinforced with a web of energy, its cracks not just patched, but healed. On the Garden, Jia Li's work was slower, but just as visible. Her atmospheric processors stood like silent metal trees on the barren plains outside the dome. They churned day and night. Sensors showed the first fragile results: a fractional increase in oxygen, a slight decrease in toxic ions. It was not enough to breathe yet, but it was a change in the direction of life. One day, she brought a small box of earth soil and seeds into the main Illusion greenhouse, a vast room they used for growing essential food algae. She didn't plant them. She gave the box to an Illusion child. The child, with careful webbed fingers, placed a single green seed into a patch of treated ground. It was a ritual, a promise of a different sky. Yuna's work was the glue. She had mastered the basics of the Illusion language, and they had learned hers. But communication went deeper. She discovered the Illusions had a latent, subtle psychic sensitivity. It was not mind-reading, but a feeling of emotional resonance, a way of sensing harmony or discord. The advanced races had scanned it, deemed it a useless evolutionary leftover, and ignored it. Yuna, with the help of the ship's computer and a very fascinated illusion musician named Laren, found a use. They translated the resonance into sound waves, and then into a communicator frequency. The first test was between the Endurance, and the MacArthur. Commodore Tay's face on the screen was skeptical. "You want to use a feeling to talk?" "Just try it," Yuna said. She focused on a simple, clear concept. Enemy ship, right flank. On the bridge of the MacArthur, an officer gasped. "Sir, I knew it." Like a gut feeling, but clear. Port sensors confirm a simulated bogey right where I felt it. It was instant. It bypassed light speed lag and coded signals. It was imperfect, limited to simple concepts and strong emotions. But in battle, or in complex coordination, it was a revolutionary tool. The human fleet, once separate ships, began to feel like a single nervous system. But the galaxy outside was cold. The embargo was total. No trade ships came. No spare parts. No messages from Earth, except for the regular grim updates. Sanctions were biting. Human colonies were feeling the strain. The Astron were encouraging other species to shun them. The isolation was a weight on everyone's soul. Then a miracle. A small, fast-moving object entered the system. It was not a ship. It was a pod, streaking past the silent Astron observers who likely deemed it unimportant space junk. It crash-landed near the human base, its surface charred. Inside, they found not weapons, but medicine. Advanced synthesizers capable of creating drugs for a dozen different physiologies. And a data chip. The message was from the Vrix, a small, furry species known for their logistics. Your compassion has a strength logic does not account for. The message said, the translation oddly formal. A chain is only as strong as its most compassionate link. You strengthen the whole. Others are watching. Endure. It was not an army. It was a nod. A secret handshake. It meant everything. Hope, however, was met with a new pressure. The Astron fleet, after months of silent observation, finally moved. Not to attack, but to press closer. 100 geometric ships tightened their circle. Like a noose gently constricting, a single laser-precise transmission arrived, addressed to Commodore Tay and Captain John. It was the Astron Collective, their voice devoid of any emotion at all. Human forces. Your continued presence is an anomaly. Your resources are finite. The logical outcome is your departure or your dissipation. We offer a final choice. Withdraw your forces from the planet and this system, and you may return to Earth space, though under permanent restriction. Remain, and you will be contained until your energy and will expire. You have 10 standard days to decide. It was the ultimatum. They would starve them out. They would let time and entropy do what plasma cannons could not. On the bridge of the MacArthur, the mood was grim. Tay looked at John over the video link. "We can't fight 100 of their ships, John. We just can't." John knew he was right. They had built a little pocket of life, but the walls were closing in. He felt the despair creeping in. Then Elder Talon's voice came over the new harmonic coms. It was not sound in their ears, but a clear, calm presence in their minds, projected with the help of Yuna and Lyran's system. "Commodore, Captain, may I speak to them? To the ones who watch?" Tay was surprised. "Elder, they do not negotiate. They calculate." "I do not wish to negotiate." Tylen's mental voice was like a still pond. "I wish to show them a calculation they have missed." Jun agreed. A channel was opened, broadcast on all frequencies toward the Astron command ship. Tylen's image appeared, and through the harmonic link, the sheer weight of his quiet dignity was palpable, even to the humans. He spoke aloud, the translator conveying his words. Astron Collective. You see a dying world and a stubborn, illogical species. You see weakness. You are mistaken. He paused, and through the harmonic link, he did something extraordinary. He didn't send words. He sent feelings. The feeling of human hands welding a conduit. The feeling of illusion child seeing a green shoot break ground. The feeling of the Vrix medic preparing their gift in secret. The resonant harmony of two species, thinking not as two, but as a new whole. You abandoned one world, Talon said, his voice gaining a strength that vibrated in the bones of his listeners. You judged its value and found it zero. In doing so, you created something new. You created a bond that crosses species. You created a cause. You now face not one illogical species, Astron. You face a galaxy that has learned from these humans the power of standing together. As he spoke, Yuna, at her console, saw it first. New signals on the long-range scanner. Dozens of them. Small, weak, coming from different points, all heading toward the Hope's Harbor system. Commodore. Captain. Incoming vessels. Multiple signatures. There. They're coming from everywhere. They weren't warships. They were freighters. Scout ships. Old colony vessels. A motley, ragged fleet of species the Council had overlooked, sidelined, or deemed unimportant. The Vrix were there. The sturdy, rock-like Silexians. The aquatic Nereids in their fluid-filled ships. Dozens more. They flew, not in formation, but in a crowd. A gathering. They streamed past the stunned, motionless Astron observers. Their messages flooded the human channels. A chorus of different voices saying the same thing. We bring food. We have spare parts. We stand with the illusions. We stand with humanity. Jun watched the screen, his throat tight. He saw the Astron fleet, once an impassable wall, now surrounded by a sea of defiant, hopeful light. The line in the stars was still there, but humanity was no longer standing alone on one side of it. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council was a silent, soaring space. Holograms of stars drifted in the air. The seats for the major species were towering and imposing. Ambassador Hana Song felt very small standing in the center. But today she was not alone. Beside her stood the Vrix ambassador, a short, furry figure clutching a data slate. Next to it was the Silexian, its body like carved stone, and the Nereid, floating in a shimmering globe of water. They were the representatives of the unlikely alliance, the dozens of minor species whose ships now filled the space around Hope's Harbor. The Astron hologram flickered, a giant, perfect geometric shape. Its voice was cool. This assembly is for recognized council members. These entities have no voice here. They have the only voice that matters today, Hana said. Her words were clear, echoing in the quiet. The voice of those you chose not to hear. She gestured. A large screen activated behind her. It did not show charts or votes. It showed Hope's Harbor. It showed the composite-built city, where human and illusion children played under the reinforced dome. It showed the atmospheric processors standing tall on the plains. It showed the garden with its single green earth sapling and the twisting, beautiful illusion water vines growing beside it. It showed the orbital shipyard, where a Silexian freighter was transferring mineral loads to a Vrix repair vessel. Under the watchful eye of a Nereid scout ship, you saw a calculation of resource expenditure versus species viability. Hana continued, walking slowly, her eyes on the towering holograms of the Astron and the absent Krovan. You saw a negative sum, a lost cause. We saw a different equation. The screen changed. It showed the harmonic communication network schematics, the blend of illusion empathy and human technology. You dismissed illusion resonance as a biological curiosity. With it, we built instant understanding. You see weakness. We see a different kind of strength. The Krovan representative's image fizzed into view, angry and sharp. You disrupted order. You encouraged rebellion. You made a mockery of our laws. The Silexian ambassador spoke, its voice like grinding pebbles. Your laws demanded we watch a people die. Their law, it gestured a stony hand toward Hannah, demanded they lift a hand. We find their law more logical. The Vrix ambassador chirped. A chain of strength. You broke a link. They are forging a new one. We choose the stronger chain. Hannah stopped. She looked up at the Astron. You judged the illusions by their utility. Humanity judges all species by their right to exist. You offered them silence and dust. We offered a hand. She paused, letting the images of the thriving hybrid city speak for themselves. Which legacy will this council choose? Will you be the architects of a galaxy built on cold abandonment? Or will you acknowledge that solidarity is the most advanced technology of all? The chamber was utterly silent. The Astron hologram did not move. The calculation was no longer about one planet. It was about the stability of their entire system of control. The unviable had become a coalition. The emotional humans had become a catalyst dot. After a long, tense moment, the Astron spoke. The Krovan hegemony has withdrawn its delegation in protest. Their trade embargo remains their own policy. The words were dry, but the meaning was seismic. The Astron were not endorsing humanity. They were stepping back from the conflict. They were cutting the Krovan loose. The illusion species status will be re-evaluated. The experimental assistance in that system may continue under observation. It was not an apology. It was a retreat. It was victory. On the surface of Hope's Harbor, the news came through. Cheers erupted in the shared mess hall, a mix of human shouts and illusion melodic whistles. Min, covered in dust from a new construction site, grinned and hugged the illusion engineer next to him. Gia, in the greenhouse, carefully touched the leaves of the young tree, a tear in her eye. Yuna laughed as illusion children hummed a perfect harmony of joy. Captain John Park, now looking at a console in the planet-side command center, felt a weight lift from his shoulders he had carried for months. He watched as the distant, silent ring of Astron ships began to power down and one by one warp away. The prison gates were opening. Commodore Tay's face appeared on his screen. Looks like you get to keep your hill, Captain. Looks like we all do, sir, Jun replied. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk years later, the Starship Harmony cut through the void. Its design was unlike any other. It had the sturdy frame of a human vessel, but its surfaces were inlaid with illusion crystalline growth that pulsed with soft light. Its sensor arrays were a blend of Silexian mineralogy and Vrix miniaturization. On the bridge, Captain Yuna Kim sat in the command chair. Her uniform had a small embroidered patch, the intertwining symbols of Earth and Aless. The crew around her was mixed. A human at navigation, a Vrix at communications, an illusion at the environmental station. Her first officer, a calm man named Tay, spoke up. Long-range scan is clear, Captain. Quiet sector. Yuna smiled. Quiet is good. It means. The communication console chirped. The Vrix officer chittered. Captain. Priority distress call. Tight beam. It's from the Cygnus Minor Mining Outpost. It's a mixed colony Silexian, Nereid, a few human families. They are under attack by raiders. Pirate vessels, likely ex-Krovan mercenaries. A map flashed on the main viewer. The outpost was far, on the edge of charted space. the kind of place the old council would have ignored. Yuna did not hesitate. She did not consult a rule book. She looked around her bridge, at the different faces, all waiting for her order. She saw Chun's determination in her own reflection, heard Hannah's defiance in her heart, felt the harmonic pulse of the ship itself, a ship built by many hands. "Helm," she said, her voice steady and clear. "Set a course for Cygnus Minor, maximum speed." She reached for the com panel. Not just the ship's channel, but the new, open harmonic frequency that connected the growing alliance of species who had learned the simple, powerful lesson. The harmony banked, its hybrid engines flaring with blue and silver light, racing toward the call for help. And from its transmitters, a message went out, not in one voice, but in a chorus, a whisper of illusion resonance, a pulse of human resolve, the clicking logic of Rix, the solid certainty of silage and stone. The message that flashed across the dark, waiting stars was the same. It was the answer to silence. It was the defiance of abandonment. It was the legacy of a dying world and the people who refused to leave it.